Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Cosmic Castaway. I'm your host, Steve Getzig. This episode is going to be an addendum to the last episode I published, which was called, if you haven't seen it yet, it was called My Close Encounter. And in that episode, for those who haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you. I encourage you to go watch it for yourself. In that episode, I walked you through an experience I had that I consider a close encounter um, experience because of all the circumstances and the strangeness of the situation and what I saw. I don't know what else it could be, but I don't want to give away any of the details. I encourage you to go and watch it yourself if you haven't seen already. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through two other experiences. One was when I was really little, and one was not too long after the first the encounter that I just talked about in my last episode. Another one occurred, but was much less intense shortly after that one. I'm going to take you through those two. I'll walk you through all the details that I can remember, and then you can decide for yourself if you feel that these stories are bullshit, or if I'm crazy, or if you think there was something to it. So we'll start with the earlier encounter I had, which is when I was around 10 years old in the early 90s. We were living in a town called Crystal Lake. That's where I grew up, and I had uh, I had a brother, an older brother. I had a step brother that was 1 year younger than I was. I had a younger sister, and then an older sister who had left for college. She had gone to Iowa State, and my dad and stepmom, they um, they were in. So our ranch house was a pretty typical ranch house. There was a bunch of bedrooms on one side, and then you go all the way down, and then you go through the kitchen and living room area, and there's a master bedroom on the other end. Now, since we there were a lot of kids in the house, and it was small. It was a 4 bedroom house, and there were 5 of us at one point. The way it worked is my brother and my stepbrother had to share a room, and then both my sisters got their own rooms. They got their own private rooms. Lucky them. So I'm going to lay out the f- the details of the room just to help you visualize what I was just to help you visualize the scene. It was a small room, probably too small for three young boys, but it was a small room. Um, there was so there's a doorway. So this is I'm going to describe it from the point of view from where I was when this happened, which was in the back corner. We had a bunk bed where the bottom mattress was a full mattress, and unfortunately, I had to share that with my stepbrother for a while, a couple of years. And then there was a top bunk that was a single. It was a single mattress that my brother slept in. And then on that wall, so I'm sitting in my bed. I'm right up against the wall here, and I got stepbrother here, and behind me is a wall, and above me is my brother's um, bunk bed, upper bunk bed. Against that wall are was a wall unit that my dad built. It was just like 3 shelving units for us to put our personal knickknacks on, and then 3 sets of drawers for us to keep our clothes in. And then there was a corner shelving unit where we had a TV and our video games, and then there was a attached to that along uh, this wall that came towards me, the back wall was a desk where we had a really old computer, and then there was a window on that wall, and then the opposite wall of that window there was a small closet with a sliding door, and then directly next to that closet again was the doorway. Now, that doorway, when you look at it from my perspective, you you can see another doorway directly behind it, which leads to what used to be my older sister's room. And then on that far wall, if both doors are open, you could see out the window and see out to our backyard. In between those two doorways, the wall I'm sorry, the in between those 2 doorways, there was a closet door, which was the end of that hallway. Um, yeah, it was just a small, you know, typical closet for keeping where we kept, like, spare blankets and whatnot. Now, um, I'm I'm usually I usually don't have trouble falling asleep, but there was one night where I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and I couldn't tell you why. Again, normally I didn't have too much trouble, but for some reason I did this time. This one particular night. And so I'm lying there, and it's getting later and later and later. And when at this moment, both doorways, our doorway to our bedroom and the doorway across the hall, was open, so I could see through both doorways. You know, if I'm looking, so if I'm laying down, I'm looking towards my feet, which is what I was doing. I just kept looking up and then looking towards my feet. I could see through both doorways, and I could see the window, and there were some yard lights in our and others' backyards, which illuminated the window frame. So I could so s- the po- the point of my telling you that is to let you know that if someone or something passed in between the window and me, I would be able to see a silhouette of it. I wouldn't be able to see the details of it, but I would definitely be able to see the silhouette because of, again, it's just I can see all the way through. And it was enough light that anyone walking in front of the door or walking through the hall, I would see them. Like it would just but it would just be a black silhouette. Now, so what happened? So I'm laying there trying to fall asleep, and it's really late. It must have been somewhere between 11:30 and 1:30 in the morning. I don't know what time it was, but I just know that my stepbrother was asleep next to me, and my older brother was asleep because I could hear him snoring. They both snored kind of not loud, but loud enough that I could hear it. Um, and while I'm laying there, again, I keep looking up and I keep looking down. And I'm just kind of back and forth while I'm thinking about whatever I'm thinking about. And I also had, not that it's really that relevant, I had my own little wooden shelving unit that I made in a shop class that had my alarm clock and some personal knickknacks on it. Um, that's how I knew what time it was. That's how I had an idea. That's how I kept track of time during the night. I had a LED alarm clock. And if memory serves, it was definitely somewhere between 11:30 and 1:30. My dad was long asleep, and my stepmom would sometimes stay up late grading. She was a second grade teacher, so she would sometimes stay up late grading papers. When she would stay up grading papers, she would use the kitchen light. The kitchen was all the way at the end of the hall through our small living room, which was very small. It was directly attached to that, and so that bright kitchen light that was over the table, that light was bright enough that it reached all the way over to that side of the house and slightly illuminate the walls and the hallway. It wasn't very bright, but it was bright enough that I could see it. That was definitely off. You know, the hallway was completely dark. Again, the only source of light were the light coming from the window directly across from me and a little bit of light from the high school coming through our windows. They kept bright lights on around the high school all night long. But it was just, again, faint, very faint. Now I'm laying there, I keep looking back and forth, and then all of a sudden I look down, and then I see, so again, door frame. So here's a door frame along the side not the side where the closet is, but the side of the door that would lead to the kitchen. I saw a silhouette, a dark black silhouette of someone's head peeking into a room, like they were standing up against the wall and just kind of, like this, something like this. It was like I could see half of a head, someone's head, whoever or whatever it was. I could see about half it, just kind of. Now, again, I couldn't see any details of this head. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't see a mouth. I couldn't see anything. But somehow, and don't ask me how, I don't know, but I could feel that it was whoever it was watching me. And Now, my first reaction was, "Oh, it's one of my parents, probably my stepmom." So I just I just dropped my head back and closed my eyes and pretend like I was sleeping because I didn't want to get yelled at. Because we often a lot of times we'd stay up and goof around, and then my dad would come down there and yell at us, and say, "This is your final warning. You know if you don't stop talking, go to sleep. You're going to be punished." So I immediately pretended like I was asleep just because I didn't want problems. I didn't want to get yelled at. So I just kept my head tilted back for a few minutes, and then and then sort of opened my eyes a little bit and just looked down, just tried to sneak a peek, and the head was still watching me. Whoever it was still looking at me. So from there, I just sort of I figured that whoever they were, they probably knew I was awake. Again, I'm assuming it's one of my parents, so I think they already knew that I was awake, and so I don't know, for whatever reason, I just tried to just be diplomatic about it and say, "Hey," and I said, "Hey" or "hello," and I waved my hand like this. I just kind of like just, "Hey," "hello," something along that line. And I waited for a response, but no response ever happened. And I just kept looking, and whoever it was looking right back at me. After like what seemed like an eternity of just the stare off, I just, in actuality, it was probably like 30 seconds, but it felt like a long time just staring at whoever this was. And I didn't say anything, but I started to kind of wave again. Like, I was going to say hello again, but for some reason I didn't. I just kind of shook my hand like this and then waited again for another response. Nothing. Nothing happened. Finally, after another maybe after another 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a minute. Again, this was a long time ago, but I know that the full event, that the full experience, the full duration of this experience wasn't very long. It wasn't like a 10-minute experience. It was less than 5 minutes for sure. Um, after the second time waving, I started to feel kind of strange because I'm wondering why aren't they responding? Like, what's going on here? Why are they why aren't they saying anything? And then like shortly after, while I was thinking that, when I started to think that, that black silhouette of a head, just as slowly as it appeared, just slowly went back like this. Now, I didn't get up just to see if someone was in the hallway. I didn't want to wake up. I think because I didn't want to wake up my stepbrother, and I didn't want, again, I just didn't want any trouble, and I was kind of nervous, so I just kind of stayed still and just kept the blankets up like this, and kept thinking about it. And at some point, I eventually fell asleep. But I don't remember if I'd asked if anyone had peeked in our room last night, and even in retrospect, I don't even think it would have mattered. They probably, even if they were peeking at us, they probably wouldn't admit it. I don't know. I just feel like they wouldn't have admitted it, especially my stepmom, who was a very dishonest person. Probably wouldn't have would just lied and said it wasn't me. So I didn't bring it up to anybody. I didn't say anything. But now here's the thing. When I think back on that, the one detail that always bothered me about that, which is why I cast down on it being one of my parents or my step parent, was the fact that the head was completely round. There was no ear. I didn't see a silhouette of an ear. I didn't see hair. Both my parents had long hair. So if they had peeked in, my stepmom had really, curly, you know, uh, I don't know how to describe it. It was she had a lot of hair and it was very curly, and you definitely, it was, covered her ears. Definitely would have seen that. I should have seen like hair. But and my dad, again, he had long hair too, and he had glasses. He had big early 90s glasses. I didn't see any of that in that silhouette. I should have been able to see not only hair, I should have been able to see an ear. There should have been some kind of outline of someone's ear or their hair, but there wasn't. It was just a smooth curve. It was, again, it just very slowly, like almost eerily, just went like this. and all I see is a curve, a smooth curve all the way. No other detail, just a black silhouette of a partial face. I'm sorry, of a partial head with no hair and no ear. I should have been able to see again. It wasn't like it was far away. It was like from my point of view to that door jamb, that door frame, uh, 8 feet. Eight and a half, maybe 8.5, 9 feet, which is not far. That's really close. That's that's actually uncomfortably close. But anyway, so it's not like it was too far for me to be able to tell. No, it was right there. The door is right there. You crawl to the end of the bed, and when you get out of the bed, you're basically in the doorway. There's like a foot of space, and then you're in the doorway, a foot and a half maybe, and then you're in the doorway. So they were right there. I should have been able to see something, an earring, uh, hair, something, but it was just a smooth curve, and that's why to this day I don't think it was either one of my parents. I don't think it was them at all, and I believe it was whoever or whatever it was. It was the same whoever or whatever that paid me a visit that I described in my last episode. Now, the second the second instance I wanted to share with you was after the incident that took place, very shortly after the incident that took place in my last episode. Again, I strongly encourage you to check it out if you haven't already seen it. This was December. I actually know exactly when it was. It was December. It was December of 2016. It was right after Christmas. My brother and his former wife invited me out to their home to spend Christmas with their kids. So I flew out there. I was there for, I think, about a week, like 5 days, maybe 4 or 5 days. I came back either on the 26th or the 27th. At this point, I had just moved back from Chicago, and I was back in Crystal Lake again. So I'm back in Crystal Lake. I have an upstairs apartment, and there's you're either on the top floor or you're the bottom floor. That's it. And the the apartments that were above, your doorway was at the bottom level, and when you walk in, there's a stairwell that goes up into your apartment. Now, it's not a stairwell and then like a hallway up to, a hallway stairwell. No, that stairwell is open to your apartment. It's all part of your apartment. There's just this big wall, and then there's a balcony, and then right over that balcony is like my couch and TV and living room and all that. And then just when you so if you walk all the way up to the top of the stairs, directly in front of you is well, if you look this way, is a kitchen with a peninsula kitchen that had a stove on it and a sink and stuff like that. And then behind there was obviously cabinets for your dishes, and then there was a refrigerator and whatnot. And then you look more to the right that way, and then you see a sliding glass door with a very, very, very small balcony. And then you pivot more to the right, and it's just a good sized living room, which is where my couch and TV and living room table was. And then to the left was a hallway that led to one bathroom and then two different bedrooms. So I went there, had a good time. Now, when I came back, and I'm really tired and beat up from that awful flight, and so I opened the door, I set my luggage down. So I took my shoes off, left my baggage there, and I think I was going upstairs to turn on the heat and then get a drink of water or something. And so I'm just kind of slowly walking up the stairs because again I'm really tired from that long trip. So I'm walking up the stairs. One light was on, and it was I actually turned on the light. It was sorry, I forgot to mention this. There was when you walk in, there's a on the left side or the right side. I don't remember which side, but one of them there's a switch that turns on a light that's above the stairs, and there's one that turns on a light in the hallway at the top of the stairs to illuminate the hallway where the bedroom and all that was. I only turned on the light that was in that hallway. And so I'm walking up the stairs. I get to the top of the stairs, and the instant I could see my kitchen. And the second I cleared it and my eyes could see the kitchen, I mean, the split second my eyes cleared and I could see into the kitchen because I was looking that way. I was going towards the kitchen to get something to drink. Split second, my eyes could see into the kitchen. I saw a black silhouette standing in my kitchen, suddenly and extremely abruptly duck down. And they moved so fast. I personally think it was the quickness of the movement that caused the sound, but it moved so fast. I just froze because I thought someone was in my home, and I just stood there, just kind of trying to peek over the counter. And I was listening very carefully, but I didn't see anything and I didn't hear anything. And eventually, I was brave enough to walk around. I waited a couple of minutes to see if I heard any noises of someone like crawling around. Didn't hear anything. So I just very slowly walked around the peninsula. And I didn't go completely around. I just sort of peeked like that, just sort of stretched and nothing. No trace of anyone having ever been there except for me. Even like the most skilled ninja, whatever, in history, couldn't move that quickly. It was so fast. I mean, if a human moved that fast, you probably hurt yourself. You would probably injure your back or your knees or something. But it just rapidly ducked. Rapid. I know I saw something because I reacted. I react to it. It wasn't like I was like, you know, like, wait, did I just see something? I know I saw it long enough that I was convinced someone was in my home and I was scared out of my mind. I thought it was an intruder and I thought I might be killed. So, and that's all the detail I can give you about that. But it was, like I said, it was not that long after what happened when I was living in Roscoe Village. The event that I detailed in the last episode. Um, it was that same kind of, from what I could see, which again was a split second, it was that same deal. I didn't see any color, I didn't see any detail. I just saw a black silhouette of what seemed to be a humanoid figure, and then it was gone, and that was it. Anyway, to wrap this up, as I think back on it, I believe personally, I I don't believe it was any kind of hallucination because in all three cases I wasn't on anything. In each instance, the whoever or whatever it is seemed to have an interest in me for some reason, and I don't know why that would be. I mean, I'm just some regular person that you would pass in the street and you would never think twice about. You pass me and forget me in 30 seconds. I believe this, whoever this was, it might have been me, um, from a future when I okay. At some point in the future, I'm dead, right? We all are. We're all dead at some point in the future. We're dead, and so we've already died. If you think of time in a linear fashion, then you probably won't accept something like this. But if you're like me, you th- I believe time is not at all the way we perceive it to be. I don't believe that there is the past, future, and present are separate pieces like we make it out to be. I don't believe that at all. I think they're all this, it's all the same. They all happen at the same time. And it's just somehow, for whatever, human beings are just always trapped in a moment. We're only able to experience a single moment at a time. We're not able to look in either direction, except some people seem to have, there have been many cases throughout history of people having visions of the future. And then in some cases, they act on it. In some cases, they don't. I have books and books where I've read all kinds of stories of people experiencing what some call clairvoyance or premonitions of the future. If the future hasn't happened yet, how did they know? How did they have that experience? I have a stack of books of people having these kinds of premonitions, and like I said, some of them ignore them, and they happen, and they perish, or something bad happens to them, and some people act on them, and then they're fine, and then they which means they altered their destiny, they altered their future. They're now living in an alternate timeline because the timeline that they were originally in, they perished. I am not one of those people who think it who think of time as in linear terms. I think it's the opposite. I think it's omnipresent. It's all happening at the same time, and multiple versions of it. I'd say probably infinite versions of it. That it's all the time. When I'm dead, if I'm offered the choice to go back and look and watch myself through, just like fast forwarding and rewinding through a DVD or a YouTube clip, if I can just scrub through it and just pick moments to go back and watch, I absolutely will do that. That would be the first thing I'd want to do because I want to go back and remember so much that I have forgotten and people that I miss. Like my sister, my little sister who passed away a long time ago. I would love to go back and see her again. I mean, I expect I'll see her when I die. When I'm on the other side and I'm dead. I believe I'll see her, but I would love to go back and see her when she lived, and because I miss her very much. But I would do that. I would 100% do that. I'm just someone who thinks about the past a lot. Probably too much. Probably too much. It's probably I waste a lot of time thinking about the past. But um, anyway, if I was given the choice after I'm dead, someone gives me that choice and that ability, I would take it like that in a heartbeat. Um, if it's not that, then then the only other explanation I can think is it's just some. It's either I'm not convinced that this is some kind of extraterrestrial visit because those usually go a very different way. You can usually see them. You can see their people often describe their heads and their almond shaped eyes and a little slit for a mouth and like no ears. This was nothing like that. It was just a black silhouette, a humanoid figure. In each case, it except for the head, it resembled a human, except for the perfectly smooth round head. Anyway, I don't think it's anything like that. Maybe it's some kind of um, maybe it's some kind of interdimensional person who lives, or maybe it was three different people each time. Maybe it wasn't the same person each time. I don't know, but if it was, maybe there are people who live right here on Earth that we can't see. They exist in a different dimension that's right up that's sort of butt right up that's pressed right up against ours. Like they're walking around all over the place, and they can see us. We can't see them because we can't. Our bodies are our bodies exist, our eyes exist, our senses all exist within a three-dimensional space, right? So we can only see within those three. We're confined to those three dimensions. Who I think it's possible that whoever these shadow figures are or were, they might be just members of a civilization that coexists with us right here on this planet, but we just can't see them. They're walking around all the time, and they're looking at us all the time. They're watching us all the time, but we just can't see them because again, we're confined to dimensions 1, 2, and 3, and they may exist in dimensions 4, 5, and 6 and 7, or who knows. Even Einstein admits that the possibility of more than three dimensions is very likely. Even if you study um, Einstein's work in general and special relativity, it does allow for the existence of multiple dimensions beyond the three that we experience every day. And so again, there's a good possibility that they are right here, right now, walking among us, living among us, and they're always watching us, but we just can't see them. But they sometimes they intersect with our three-dimensional space. Somehow they figured out how to do it. They intersect and become visible for a moment. But maybe there's some prime directive, or maybe there's some rule that says you're not allowed to be, you're not allowed to let, we're not allowed to see them. We're not allowed to know that they're there. Maybe only some people who work in, black projects and classified projects, like deep black projects, maybe they figured out technology that allows them to not only see them, but maybe even communicate with them. Who knows? There's a lot of rabbit holes that you can choose from, go down. But I don't think that one is as likely, but I think certainly it's more plausible than anything else. Because again, it could not be any kind of delusion. Because again, I don't take any kind. I've not. Back then I was not on any medication. I didn't take psychedelics. I didn't use any drugs whatsoever. I never had, and I wasn't no alcohol, no nothing. So there was nothing influencing my judgment or my senses. Nothing. Other than just like maybe a slight fatigue, or I would, like in my last video, I was just very upset about something. I was very, very upset. If you want to use that to just dismiss what I experienced, fine. That's that's your prerogative. But I was there. I experienced. I know it, but had nothing to do with that. Had absolutely. Well, I don't know that had nothing to do with it, but it wasn't a delusion brought on by that. Definitely not. I've been way more upset than that about a lot of other things, and I didn't see people. No, I didn't get any. I didn't get any visitations from that. Why they chose that specific moment, I don't know. That night, I don't know. All I can say for sure is it happened. I know it happened. I don't know who it was or where they came from, but I've seen this. I've experienced this multiple times throughout my life since I was a child and all the way through adulthood. And in each case, the encounters are very brief. I don't in two of the encounters that I can remember, I wasn't affected in any way, but I just I was just aware of someone or something watching me. And then in another one, which is the one I described in my last video, they they actually interacted with me physically, and I was in some sort of um, paralysis state, and all I could do was just roll my head and open. All I could do was open my eyelids and roll my head from side to side, and breathe, of course. So, anyway, that is all I have to say about those incidents. If you have any thoughts or you have any questions, you want to hear more, please feel free to leave me a comment. I'd be more than happy to um, answer any questions you have. If you had similar experiences, I imagine some of you out there more than likely have had similar experiences. I've read a lot of and I've seen a lot of videos, and I've read a lot of cases where people have experienced what they call the shadow people. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it certainly sounds like it. But I can't say for sure if it's the same thing. But anyway, happy to answer any questions. Um, and if you just want to share your own personal experience, I would love to hear it. And again, just leave it in the comments below. And if you like this content and you want to hear more, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.